You get the wireless mic. What's that all
I
about?
do because I've had issues before.
Okay.
She's very soft-spoken, and then she kind of...
I flail sometimes
okay.
every now and then.
Yeah.
Oh, we get a lot of shots. Everybody come to the net. We just have to get more and more pucks to the net.
We used to talk about in Vancouver getting pucks on net and
Pucks on net.
Well, that's the key. We got to get the puck on net.
What were you saying about putting pucks on net?
Continue to put pucks on net and
it's just getting pucks on net.
Pucks on net and
Live on tape from the Pucks on Net studios. This is Pucks on Net, a Vancouver hockey podcast. Doesn't talk about fantasy or fancy stats. I got some bad news right off the bat. Dave, our usual co-host, he's not here this week. He's playing in his beer league final. So in replacing him, we have Kirk McLean. So Kirk, thanks for joining us.
So I feel honored. I had a friend that actually was playing in a beer league semifinal. I think it was last night. Like at 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, really?
Maybe they're playing each other right
They
now.
were North Van.
Dave didn't play last night. Dave's out in 8 rinks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you ever been asked by buddies to can you come in and play?
Well, you get it all the time, but they know better. That's something I gave up pretty much right at retirement.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I haven't even looked at a set of goalie pads or equipment since this is 16 years almost now.
But aren't you the big first-line center on the alumni team?
Well, at the beginning I was. Now that I'm a little bit older, I've kind of dropped back to defense and just let the puck do the movement, right?
You're a stay-at-home defenseman.
Stay-at-home defenseman.
Murray
for
Barron
sure.
looking like that.
Yeah.
See,
I try to pinch in,
but
then I get yelled at because I just don't really hurry up back.
Because I was going to ask you, because we had Kyle Wellwood on the show last night, and I was like, who's taking better draws on the alumni team? But I mean, if you're back staying on the point.
Yeah. Well, I was pretty good at one point, early in retirement with the alumni. But no, guys like Kyle and Cliffy Ronning, they certainly come to our rescue, especially some of these charity games that we go to where we may get ambushed by a team. They tell us they're going to send a certain type of team or suit up a certain type of team, and bam, they have a few younger ringers. But Kyle's only 32, 33 years old, so he's still capable of playing the National Hockey League.
See, I'd want to be backup goalie. I'm like, isn't that the position you want to play?
Right now, no. You don't want to play goaltending. I watch these guys now. Even the backup goaltenders. It's they're pretty good athletes. They're what they can do with the speed of the game now and how they play in their butterfly and their lateral movement in their butterfly. This freaks me out sometimes because excuse me. It would take me a little bit of time to try and figure that out.
Yeah.
I butterflied, but nothing to point to what they did.
They had there was a clip in last night's game where Marc-Andre Fleury was doing cartwheels in full goalie pads.
Yeah. Well, equipment's a little bit lighter than back in the day. He wouldn't be doing that.
I want to thank everybody thank you for joining us. Actually, before that, did you ever try to change your style to butterfly a bit or a hybrid kind of?
No, I get labeled as a stand-up goaltender, and this is the way I was taught, but yet still to butterfly when needed. Mm-hmm. Angles were always the big factor in my game and what was taught to me by my mentors, but. There were situations where, the butterfly was needed, whether the puck was passed across and you had the butterfly get across, or the 2-pad slide, obviously. The Calgary series that kind of came to the forefront. But now, I watch goaltenders now. You dump a puck in from your own blue line, and they'll butterfly and catch it. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Just stand up and catch it. It makes it much easier.
I hear this phrase a lot, like they're not making save, they're just blocking it. Well, they're getting in the way of it, kind of.
It's changing a little bit, but the players in front of them are so big and so fast. There is a lot of blocking and percentage play, just because the simple reason they can't see the puck. Yeah. So they know where the initial pass is gone and where the puck is, but it's tough for them to see it in. Even if they're down looking for it, it's still pretty tough for them because of the big bodies in front of them. So they're going to try and cover big part of the net that they think where the puck's going to go, and hopefully it hits them. These are why the goaltenders are 6'5" now and 6'6", because when they are in their butterfly, they still cover the whole net.
Yeah. Just want to. Oh, where was I going to go here? Yeah.
You
anyway,
were one of the big guys back in the day in the NHL.
I
You're
was
a big guy, but I mean, there's some monsters.
I was
out there,
considered a bigger goalie back in the day. That the Barassos, myself, Hextall, even Kay Whitmore, who I played with, was a taller, not taller, but probably the same size as me.
Who was a smaller goalie than?
Arthur's Urbe, he was small. Greg Millen, he was small. Darren Pang obviously was probably the smallest.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Oh, so everyone from Sportsnet.
yeah, exactly. Mike Vernon was a smaller goaltender, but not as small as you think.
Okay.
Yeah.
You bring up Artis Urbe, and like that, that 97-98 season is a pretty polarizing season in Canucks history, because that was your last one with the team. You were traded midseason. I'm just, we'll talk about a lot of things, but I'm just kind of curious. What was it like starting the season with Mark Messier on the team, Mike Keenan your coach, and just that few years removed from that run?
Well, we started the season at Pat Quinn was still our coach GM, and he was relieved of his duties probably in around, I want to say in December, not quite halfway through the year. I can remember where it was. We were in Washington.
Yeah.
And it was the night after a game. I don't know if we won or lost again. I can't remember. We probably lost it because this is the way it happened. But it was in the morning. We're going down to the team bus, and it was myself, I believe it was Sergio Mamesso and Dana Merzum walking the elevator, and there's Pat. Hey, Pat, how's it going? And he just wasn't too happy, and then explained to us what happened, and it was just silence from then on. We just couldn't believe what was going on. But, and then Keenan came in sometime in the new year, I think it was.
And when were you traded?
I got traded, I think, late January or early February in
January.
In 98. Was it January? Yeah. Do you remember that?
Key to the fact check.
It was a dark day for
I try to forget. Yeah, there was, Pat was obviously the first of that era to lose his job, and then myself, Martin Jelena, got traded to Carolina, and then it was just a trickle effect from there. Trevor and Gino, and even the likes of Dana Merzin, who got actually sent down to the minors, believe it or not. And so it was a weird feeling, that's a different story in another day.
What's the way what was the difference between a team run by Pat Quinn and then a team run by Mike Keenan going in? You hear a lot of things. You hear a lot of.
At the time, Mike wasn't really, because we still had Steve Tambolini, who was here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So they were kind of GMs, so to speak, Mike obviously maybe had a little bit more to do with anything, along with maybe Mark, and it was different. Listen, Mike had a wonderful record throughout his career, whether it be Canada Cups or just regular NHL league play. So you can't knock him for anything like that. And he had obviously a reputation as an iron fist. Not saying Pat didn't. Pat certainly knew when to put the hammer down and get the best out of his guys. But he was also a real players coach, because of he was the type of guy that went to bat for his players. He stuck up for his players and never threw anybody under the bus or never tried any head games or anything like that. If he didn't think you were pulling your weight, he wouldn't call you out in front of the teammates. He'd pull you into his office and you'd talk it out. And
he showed that level of respect.
Exactly. Yeah. Where Mike was quite the opposite.
And that's, from your point of view, that's not. Is that?
It worked for a while for him on every team he went to. I think by the time he got to us, that type of or that style of coaching maybe started to trickle out.
Yeah.
Right.
And of course, with the veteran players that knew his reputation, it didn't really faze anybody, other than the fact maybe that was the issue, and he didn't like that. So that's
what
why.
Was the sense in the dressing room when you knew that he was the hire?
Well, you're just kind of, wondering what was going to happen, because, like I said, he his record spoke for itself, and you were just hoping that he was going to be able to come in and help out with what was going on, and it just ultimately became a big disaster. Even after everybody was gone, it was for a good 6-7 years. It was a disaster, and of course, Berkey comes back, and his first fire was Mike Keenan. So that tells you something.
Could we'll maybe roll it back a little bit to the beginning of your time in Vancouver. I wanted to ask about 87 coming in. I mean, you're kind of coming into a team similar to the position the Canucks are in right now. High draft picks, rebuilding after that 82 run. They're rebuilding after the 11 run. I mean, do you see a lot of parallels right now from when you came in?
A little bit. But there were pretty dark days, or near the end of the dark days, from the mid 80s to late 80s. Going into the Pacific Coliseum, there was only 12,000 people. At least we're a
lot of blue seats.
Yeah, a lot of blue seats. A lot of seats dressed as people. But so it was a full rebuild when Pat and Berkey and the rest of the crew came here. I don't believe, this is my personal feeling, I'm not too privy to what goes on totally in the hockey side of it, but I really believe that we're in a rebuild, no doubt about it, but it'll be a shorter one, 2 years, 3 years, maybe even earlier. You never know. I mean, there's so much parity in the league now, even with the younger guys coming in.
Right.
They surprise a lot of people, and there's a lot of good hockey players out there, that's for sure.
Have you seen much of, I guess the guy people are hoping is the next Kirk McLean is Thatcher Demko? Have you seen much of him?
I haven't. I watched a little bit at the Young Stars in Penticton and earlier in the year before training camp, and I certainly liked what I saw. And I know down in Utica he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but that's expected. It's a big adjustment going from college hockey to professional hockey, or junior hockey to professional hockey, even at the AHL level. It's a good hockey league, and the speed for the goaltenders especially, and defensemen, those are the two positions where it takes a little bit longer. But then he came on and had a great second half, or two quarters of the year, and I'm sure they're expecting for big things. Whether he's up next year or they're going to give him another year, I don't know. Markstrom is here, obviously, along with Miller. Do they re-sign Miller? I don't see why not. I mean, he had a wonderful year. To me, he was the MVP next to Bo.
Yeah.
Him and Bo, for sure.
Yeah.
That's the bright spot, the workload he had.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about like the struggles going from junior to the AHL, the NHL. Like, what was that like for you? Like when you went from the OHL?
Yeah. Well, I had a chance right from OHL to go play my first few games with New Jersey as an 18-year-old, 18 and 19-year-old. So I got a little bit of early experience, but my first full year in professional sports, I played most of it down in the minors with the Maine Mariners. That we had a plethora of goaltenders right then. So that same year, I had myself, Craig Billington, Chris Terreri, and next year after that, Sean Burke was coming in. So
that Marty Brodeur kid showed
Marty,
up a couple years later.
He came a wee bit later, but
it was a good system in New Jersey.
Well, it was.
Right
I mean, that's to be honest, that's where you start your team, or you draft from the goaltender out, and if you can collect a good amount of goaltenders and defensemen, they become commodities, right?
Exactly.
And so you can trade for certain pieces, and that's what they ended up doing. Poor Craig Billington, him, myself, and Terreri were drafted in the same year. Craig went second pick. He was like a real high pick, which was very odd for goaltenders back then. I went 6th round, and Terreri went 7 or 8. They brought Craig up as an 18-year-old, and he played almost a whole year. And then sent him back to junior.
Yeah.
Craig for two or 3 years was Team Canada's World Junior goalie for a couple of years, so he had success obviously in World Juniors and some in the OHL and in playoffs. So he was the guy at the time, and then a fellow by the name of Alain Chevier, who came out of the blue. He was the University of Miami of Ohio, and he became the sacrificial lamb for quite a while, poor guy. But he was a workhorse, and he played very well for them with a bunch of goalies that kind of alternate back and forth, myself included. Obviously, Chris and Biller, guys like goaltender Hanu Kampuri, Carl Friesen, Sammy Saint Laurent. Who else was there? Bob Sauvé. You can go down the line. Prior to that, I was going to camps, so Chico Resch was still playing, and Ron Lowe. Yeah. So so that's how old I am.
So what were those like? Because we've never played in the NHL. What is the first game like when you get the start as an 18-year-old?
Well, I got called up. There was 3 games. My first 3 games. There's 3 games left in the season, and
were they in the playoffs?
No. That's the years when Gretz was calling the Mickey Mouse organization, all that kind of stuff. So, no, they were fighting for first overall draft pick. Yeah. So
let's put Kirk in.
Yeah, well, it almost came down to that. So I got called up, and we're in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't play that game. I just sat and watched, and then we played the last 2 games back to back against the Islanders, who were just coming out of their dynasty era. So they had everybody still, from Billy Smith out to Mike Bossy and Potvin and Nystrom, everybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we go into Long Island the first game, and it's like 4-0 after 10 minutes for them. And I'm like, oh my god. Get the tap on the shoulder. Okay, kid, on you go. So I go in, and I can remember my first save was a breakaway against Clark Gillies. and I made the save. And then I did okay. We lost 7-2 or something like that. So I let 3 goals in 2.5 periods or so.
Okay.
Next night, back-to-back final game. It's fan appreciation night at the Meadowlands. I get to start. So things are going pretty good, Billy Smith's talking to me during the warm-up. He's playing. He's going, kid, just relax, enjoy yourself out there, yada, yada, yada.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then things are going great. We're going into the third period. We're up 5-3 going into the third period. We end up winning the game 9-7. It was a win.
Hey,
it was a win. The W was there.
And your first win.
My first win, yes. And unfortunately, my parents weren't there to see it, but I did have friends that drove up and were there to witness it, which was a nice feeling for me. I would have obviously loved my parents to be in there, but it just didn't work out that way. But at least somebody from the neighborhood was there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
When you get traded to Vancouver, because you say that the Devils were in that kind of darker days, the Mickey Mouse days, as Wayne put it, is it a positive feeling going?
He took a lot of heat for that, and then he obviously apologized.
I mean, but it's you got to take heat for that. Yeah. I mean, that's a tough comment to make. I mean, that's a proud organization.
Absolutely. I mean, it probably Wayne doesn't say things like that very often, if at all. It was just something that probably just came out, and maybe there was the heat of the conversation, and maybe it was a quick question after a game, and he didn't have enough time to just kind of cool off and think about something.
Kirk, I understand if you got some gripes with Wayne.
You're
in a lot of highlight packages.
I love Wayne, and I consider him a friend, and there's two guys, superstar players that I've been around and know and are the cat's meow, and that's Wayne Gretzky and Bobby Orr. These guys are incredible people. They're just true professionals, and at the end of the day, one of the guys. They really love hanging. They like telling stories.
Yeah,
the odd adult beverage,
couple pops.
But that's where they feel comfortable is amongst their peers, and they're I don't want to say shy, out in the general public. Bobby more than Wayne. Wayne handles extremely well. That's all he does. But Bobby's kind of he likes to stay behind the scenes, and he's not super comfortable in the spotlight.
Well, yeah, and he likes that privacy.
Exactly, yeah. But those two guys, like Wayne's, is we laugh and giggle like when he scored his 802. I always tell him that he was selfish because we had to stop the game.
Yeah.
And Gordy's there, make the presentation, and it's all about him. So he laughs. Oh, come on, Mac. Said we won the game.
Yeah,
we won the game. And if I remember correctly, a lot of people don't remember Pavel scored his 50th goal that same game too.
But it's
It's all about Dedo too. He goes, Mac, that wasn't even that wasn't my favorite goal on you. My favorite goal is, you remember the one I batted it out of the air on you? I said, yeah, Wayne, I remember that.
Yeah, don't make me trying to forget here. Let me I know it was Wayne Gretzky and he was at that level already in LA, but is the other team, or are you cool with them stopping the game for that, or is it
of course. Yeah. I mean, it's history. It's history in the game. But he was again the gentleman that he is. He came over to the bench and he thanked every one of us for being patient and doing that. So that's something you don't see.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the cameras aren't on you. He's a true professional, and that's just the type of guy he is.
See, I mean, you talk. If he likes talking about all the goals he scored. Is there somebody you just really hated to play against?
Mario Lemieux and Jaromir Jagr.
Well, I think
two guys. Obviously when they were playing together too, I was like, oh my gosh, but. Big guys, tall guys, that long sticks, long reaches, and for some reason, I just couldn't figure them out. But having said that, my first shutout was against Pittsburgh, and Mario Jagr wasn't there yet, but Mario was there, and that was here in Vancouver.
So he always held that against you. He's like, I'm going to make the rest of your career a living hell.
Lucky we didn't play them very often.
You got.
To be fair, a lot of goalies had trouble with those guys. When you mentioned that they gave you trouble, they did okay for themselves.
Yeah, and Mario, we all know what type of player. Can you imagine if he wasn't, he didn't get sick or wasn't, injured with his back or whatever? Who knows what he could have.
If anyone could give Wayne a run for his money, that would be the guy.
Absolutely.
Speaking of money, we have to pay our bills on this show. We have a sponsor, Kirk.
Okay.
Do you have a printout?
I don't have a printout, but I have.
Just a sponsor, or
we have a bunch of.
Okay, good.
We're trying to get Apothic wines, but they are not playing well.
Okay.
Are you doing this one?
I'll do it.
Okay.
And because I can ask Kirk this question. Kirk, with all the options out there, why is it that so many people, including local sports pros, trust their eyes to image optometry? Do you trust them?
Not anymore. You can't see a thing. Especially when I'm reading.
Do you wear glasses?
No, I don't. Reading glasses.
Oh.
It comes at 51. I'm going to be 51 in June, right?
Wow.
So this is what happens when you get to 48.
He's like, I'll just get the ones from the pharmacy.
Absolutely. you buy a load of them, and I place them every room.
Oh my God, my dad does the same thing.
Either sit on them and break them or whatever.
He likes to reach behind the couch, and he's like, there's a pair of glasses.
I know what you're
I'm only at 1.5, so that's not bad.
Don't worry,
I hit 30 and things just went downhill. I've got these glasses now.
Well, nevertheless, I mean, Kirk doesn't trust him, but we do. But why? It could be the online prices with brick and mortar service. It could be the direct billing, or it could be the only ones to offer a doctor's eye exam and a complete select pair of glasses for just $89.95. That's an unbeatable deal that will ensure you catch your next match in glorious HD. I mean, what else would you expect from the most affordable eye care chain in BC? Certainly not Clearly Contacts. No offense to your buddy Trevor there.
We might need other sponsors down the line, right?
What if you have Trevor on the show?
We've been trying. TC doesn't want anything to do with that. Image Optometry, the official eye doctors of the Canucks, P Mac, and Pucks on Net. Online at image.ca or image.ca. Imagine more for less. We didn't even do our plugs at the top of the show. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, PucksNetCA or PucksNetCa. Some jerk has our... I don't know. Are you on Twitter, Kirk?
I am on Twitter.
What's your Twitter handle?
One Kirk McLean.
And are you
at one Kirk McLean?
I follow him.
Same with Instagram and Facebook. So
tweets workout photos. He's still in good shape. I think he could still be playing.
Once in a while. Not
Quit
very
sucking
often. That was more because of the T-shirt I was wearing, because we did that Canuck Country Rocks for charity.
Okay. I thought they were treadmill selfies.
No. That was all about the T-shirt.
So some jerk has the Pucks on Net Twitter handle. Right. So, and he hasn't tweeted in years. We've tried to get it. So our Twitter handle is Pucks on Net CA, like our website. Okay. But when you say it out loud, it sounds like you're saying Pucks on Net Caw, like a crow would make. Yeah. So that's why.
Not Mark Crawford.
Okay.
So
you do the
That's why there's a crow.
Give him a puck.
But isn't it? One of the radio stations. Am I allowed to bring up any radio stations?
Yeah, we bring up everything.
It's 1040 that they do the caw.
Yes,
they do the caw.
Somebody brought that.
That's in the B Mac mode and
yeah.
It's Ry the Twitter guy.
Yeah,
I think they ripped us off.
Yeah,
I've heard a couple people have messaged us, and I say I gotta go back and look at the dates on that. But
they
do it pretty much every segment.
We've been doing this for 4 years. Yeah. We own that call.
Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery.
Well, Kirk, it's good to know that you've started our next Twitter rivalry, which is with with TSN 1040.
I like his name. Some jerk. That's a little harsh.
He is. If he's
You don't know this guy. Actually, Kyle said that it was him.
Yeah,
he said he owned the account.
that crafty bastard Wellwood. He is a jerk, all right?
Okay.
Unless he's passed away, then God rest his soul. But
Oh, God, no.
I want to talk about...
took a turn for the worse.
I want to talk
This podcast goes dark real quick.
We were talking about 13 Reasons Why. Do you watch that on Netflix?
I don't. No. I don't.
What are you watching?
What am I watching on Netflix?
Yeah. Riverdale.
Nothing lately. I'm not too impressed with the Canadian content
Okay.
on the Canadian Netflix.
It's a rough
anyways.
one, yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
hard to
because
find.
we
it.
love CBC
I mean,
shows.
yeah. Okay.
She's
I'm usually just looking for the movies, and the movies are like the same
Yeah.
movies forever.
Yeah.
You know what the Canadian Netflix reminds me of? It reminds me of like that bargain bin of DVDs
Yeah.
at the grocery store. You're like, I've seen Austin Powers 2 like 1,000 times.
Yeah.
Why is this still here? I want to talk about current goalies for a second. Jake Allen famously, he struggled in the regular season, and they basically told him, go home and figure it out.
Right.
And they didn't bring him on the road. He came back, and obviously he's having a great run in the playoffs. I'm just curious if you ever had a streak in your career where it's just like, it was a rough patch, nothing's going right.
Absolutely. I mean, it's probably not going to be the last time it happens to him. I never had a coach go home. Yeah. Think about it.
Have you ever heard of that happen?
Yeah.
Like, that seemed like a new one to me.
Yeah. I mean, he's their goalie of the future,
Also,
or their goalie now. And
What do you do when they say go home?
well, I don't know. Never happened. So you'd probably be a little stunned and go, "No, I'd rather work it out on the ice."
Yeah.
And in practice and
if my
if you're not
manager
going to
said
play
that,
me,
yeah.
I still want to be involved with the team.
Yeah.
I want to be on the bench. I want to.
I'm still on the team, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the question. It's like, am I still part of your team, or should I be looking for jobs in Russia?
Yeah, exactly. That's an odd one, but if whatever floats their boat, I guess if that's what happens.
I'm just curious, like, a rough patch in your career where it's just like nothing's
you
going
almost
right.
go through it once a year.
Yeah.
Really. I mean, you try to obviously limit it to a short period if you can, but it's going to happen. It happens with everybody, not just goaltenders.
Right. Everyone sucks in January.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is times in the schedule where
Yeah.
you're just like, oh my God, can we just push ahead a little bit?
Right.
When was that for you?
Or
Or when did that come up in a season?
I always found it tough at the beginning, to be honest with you. There was a couple years, 3 or 4 years where I had good stretches and at the beginning, but it was just for some reason, we'd usually play training camp would be, twice a days at the beginning, and before all the CBAs changed, then it finally became into 3 hours a day and yada, yada, yada. But we'd still be playing 10 exhibition games, 12 exhibition games, and it was like, okay, now you're tired of that. And not that we played in all 12, but and then you just want to get the season started, and then finally it gets going, and then you try to get it going.
What are
you
your
just
thoughts
can't.
on exhibition games in China?
Oh, I think it's going to be great, especially if I get to go. But no, it's a world game, and it's great for the exposure, and we need to get it out there. We have a huge community here, obviously, in Vancouver, along with South Asian as well, right? So you never know. Maybe there might be something in the future in that area as well. Hopefully there is, because we really need to grow this game as much as we can and get it out to all communities.
Right.
Well, speaking about growing the game, I mean, did the Olympic announcement kind of surprise you as a former
little
player?
bit. It did. Just because of the success it has been, I think. Just for the world, whether that, I don't know if it's in stone that they're not going. I think there's still a little bit of a gray area. So hopefully that gets figured. I'd like to see them there. I understand where the ownership's coming from as far as injuries, but if they're going to do the Canada Cup or the World Cup, I mean, it's all dollars and cents, right? I mean, it's whatever's going to bring in the most dollars is where they're going to go. But there's no difference in playing that every 2 years or every year, whatever they want to do it, than the Olympics, which are every 4 years.
Right.
As a goalie, if you were playing now, what would you what would be harder?
I think they should get rid of the All-Star game, to be honest.
Well, we all do. You're preaching.
It's turning into a farce.
Ever since since the early '90s with the nice striped jerseys that you and Trevor wore.
The bizarre
I like
format
those jerseys.
changes
Yes,
every
exactly.
year. It's hard. There's no consistency.
No, I mean
it's a little like the draft lottery.
Yeah. I mean, they say that the guys get out there and excited. I mean, I'm watching those the 3-on-3, and I mean they're floating around. They're just as much as if it was 5-on-5.
Yeah.
When they try to put a money factor on it, and maybe the teams that make it into the finals of that might play a little bit harder because it's they can smell the dough right there.
But outside of like John Scott, I mean,
I was going to say
they're just giving the money to the trainers or the equipment staff, like guys that deserve it.
Exactly,
or
and you're right there because they have a long enough year with what they do, and then if they're lucky enough for them because they're honored to do it to train or coach in the All-Star games. It's it's a lot of preparation, and especially for those trainers and equipment guys, the equipment guys especially.
Oh yeah, they deserve
it's
that.
Crazy,
yeah. But like I mean, like how many All-Star games did you play in? Was it
2?
And based on what you played in and that level of play in those All-Star games compared to what we've seen the last few years, which has just been next to nothing. Like I mean, Dave's beer league game that's going on right now is probably more intense than the final game.
I know what they're trying to do for the fans and but it just to me I don't know. I'm just not interested.
It's tough to watch.
And I think the whole skills competition thing throughout the league, when each team does it in their own, it's kind of wearing out as well.
Right.
It's again, I understand why they're doing it, but it's just they need to incorporate something else here to get everybody excited. But when I was in the first one I played in, there was only 2 goalies.
Really?
So it was me and Mike Vernon, and we played in Pittsburgh.
Okay.
And I had to go against Jeremy Geiger and Mary Lemieux. Mike started because he got voted in.
Yeah.
Mary Lemieux 4 goals in one period, and in the first period, obviously won the car that game. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And then Mike had to stay in for another half a period, and then I go in. And of course, those games get run up to 14, 13 or whatever.
If you're lucky, I feel like there were a couple that went up to 20 back in the day.
We didn't get to that. I'm glad. But that was the first year in Pittsburgh. That was 90, 91.
Okay.
So, was that the 75th year?
They incorporated the skills competition.
Yeah.
That was the first year. And I ended up winning the goalie portion of it. So, I have that claim to fame.
Not all bad. Well, it's been rough for you. mentioned the skills competitions. They've gotten a little shaky lately. Poor Markstrom.
Well,
Did you see
that?
that?
I mean, here's another risk for getting injury. Not just the skills competition in your own local club team, but even in the All-Star game.
Because it's become so gimmicky with like
chariot race
with wigs and costumes.
But the games themselves too, and the All-Star game or now the 3-on-3s.
Yeah.
I mean, you're getting these outnumbered situation on goaltenders, and the goaltenders are, I know they're flexible and and athletic, but
it's pulled groin city. Let's be honest.
Big time.
Yeah,
big time. Yeah.
Also, there's no there's no level of eliteness anymore because I can't tell you which goalies went to the All-Star game this year.
Well, the All-Star games are they're the fans, but so popularity contest. I mean the usuals are going to be there, but then there's some players that should be there that aren't there, and some players that aren't. So, but it's the fans' game, and we all get that. And ultimately they're paying the dough, so they can pick who they want to go.
Yeah.
I got a question for you because you played in Florida. Were you playing in the new building or the old building?
Both.
Well, how was the rat situation in the old building?
I didn't see one unless we scored.
Scott Mellanby took care of that for you.
Yeah, who's a friend, an old teammate, minor hockey back in Toronto.
Really?
Yeah. We played 2 or 3 years in minor hockey, and at the time, his father was the producer of Hockey Night in Canada.
Really?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how that all Peter Puck and all. If you remember all that, that's all his idea. The Grapevine was his idea.
Okay.
He produced the Grapevine as well. So I actually was on the original Grapevine when it was produced out of Hamilton.
Were you like a kid, or were you like?
No, I was pro.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It was second year pro or something like that. So it was quite a neat thing.
I love the I love the Grapevine. I go out and look on YouTube and just like Don Cherry hosting a show in a bar.
Yeah.
That's a recipe for success.
It was a fun thing to do. It was really a fun thing to do. And there's another guy, Don Cherry, who I love him. He's a character without a doubt, but you get him away from the TV camera, and he's just a wonderful dude.
Well, I'm
not saying he isn't when he's on
camera.
Oh,
no. I'm an outspoken, like, I love Don Cherry.
Yeah.
Coach's Corner, when it comes on, it's everybody shut up, and the TV goes up.
He actually tells us all to shut up.
Yeah.
John Cherry comes on at his house.
And it's like I would love to hear him on a podcast where he doesn't have 8 minutes turning into 7 minutes, turning into 5 minutes. I'm like, he has a lot to say, and I'd love to hear him talk for half an hour or something.
Well, that's what, because they have a short time, that's why him and Ron work so well together, because Ron is just incredible, right? So he can read what Grapes is trying to get out and help him along a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
But Grapes is, 83 years old now?
Yeah. I know.
It's amazing.
Do you see his blood jacket?
No, I didn't see it. I saw what he was wearing tonight.
Bring that up. He was wearing a white suit jacket and it's got blood all over it.
Well, I don't know if he thought it was blood, but it looked like it was splattered with red.
It looked like paint splatter.
Okay.
Paint splatter.
Was he trying to get a message across there?
I think the message was draw first blood or something. I think he took Ron's metaphors and similes and puns and he put it into a suit, but it didn't really. Kirk's looking at it right now.
That's funny. Was it Halloween?
No, this was like 2 weeks ago.
Was it? Okay.
It was at the last Montreal game. I think he was accused of the death of the Canadians or something along those lines.
Of course. Somebody's going to create something out of nothing.
He had a Habs tie on, though, didn't
he? That's exactly what it was, yeah.
Now, did you see Coach's Corner? Because I'm assuming he was talking about Sydney's situation, and I didn't. I saw it in the background, but I didn't hear what he had to say.
He chalked it up. It was kind of. Remember when Brandon Manning took out Connor McDavid with the accidentally on purpose in the corner? Yeah. He's basically saying that, and he brought up a good point that I didn't think of when you watch it. It's like he didn't go out to do it, but the opportunity was there.
Right. Yes,
and then you look, and he doesn't look down. Yeah. He's looking straight like, am I going to get killed? Who's on the ice that I have to...
Yeah, well, I mean, there was two infractions. Ovi's...
my God, yeah.
He was about to two-hand him pretty hard, and he kind of let up a little bit, but still, the intent was up there, and it was high.
Yeah.
And that threw Sydney off, and that's why he kind of fell. And then, like you said... when people fall into you or something like that, things happen so fast. So your instinct is to protect yourself right off the bat, and that's probably what he's going to say was happening. I just tried to protect myself, and unfortunately, his face, just happened to be there.
He's pushing.
He did. He pushed this way. It wasn't just put it up, but he kind of leaned into him, right?
It's bad. And then he's fallen on. He falls on his knee, and they're worried about that.
Yeah.
And it came out today that he's got a concussion, but that was a tough thing to watch.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not bad where he's out for the rest of the playoffs, let alone career. I mean, this is his third concussion, right?
Yeah. At least, yeah.
He already wears a helmet, has foam that's as thick as the cup we have going here. And, we need him in the game. And, he was a big factor this year.
Absolutely.
He's a wonderful hockey player.
What do you take of these? Have you watched any Predators games?
I have not.
Yeah, none of us high. It's a bit of a dull series, but it's just like that's a well-oiled machine right there. And that PK Subban Shea Weber trade's not looking.
Well, it's looking fine. I mean, Shea had a pretty good
season,
and they played okay in the playoffs, but he can't score any goals. I don't know what PK's stats are like in the playoffs, but
he was whisper quiet in the first round, and then he's come alive in this round. Okay. And then he's always known to be very lively in the warm up. And Mike Milbury went off on him.
Well, PK's sometimes enough about me. What do you think about me? So he has that little bit of a reputation going around town. So it's. He's a very talented hockey player. Don't get me wrong,
but it can rub someone the wrong
way.
Yeah, and you don't want to give anybody bulletin board material, as they always say.
Exactly.
I was just curious. You were playing in Vancouver, and it was a tough time. It was a tough time to get traded, and a tough thing.
There were some good years in the middle there. Yeah, it wasn't all a tough time, eh?
No, though. For the most part, your time in Vancouver was fantastic.
Yeah.
But you get traded 3 times in a year.
Yeah, well, that kind of 2 in a year.
2 times.
Well, one I actually asked to be traded
teams.
when I out of Carolina.
Yeah.
It was a great organization. They were going through a little bit of transition.
Was that their first year?
First or second?
Okay.
So we're living in Raleigh but playing out of Greensboro.
Okay.
So we'd have our pregame skates in Greensboro,
Yeah.
and then travel an hour and a half to Raleigh. From pregame skates in Raleigh, and then traveling to Greensboro.
Okay.
For
That's
your game.
exhausting.
Yeah, and I mean it wasn't the greatest, but they did everything they could to make the guys feel comfortable until the new rink was built, and
Okay.
all the way down from giving guys golf memberships at one of the courses and anything you needed to do. If you wanted to go and have day rooms in Greensboro and pregame meals and everything out there, if you wanted, which most guys took advantage of. But
that's tough, yeah.
Yeah. It was just a. It was still a shock to my system. I still was, devastated, to be quite honest with you, from being traded. And, just still had this going through my mind. And Trevor Kidd was there at the time. Yep. And, he was playing. I went there with bruised ribs. And, it just didn't feel comfortable for me. So, I asked to be traded out of there at the trading deadline and they obliged, which I have to thank them for. It was nothing, like I said, against the club and their organization, because they really were classy people. And then I went down to the Panthers, and then ironically found myself, after the short time I was there, the first year, in the last 20 games or whatever, playing with Kevin Weeks at the time, who was there, and Van Beesbrook, to the next year playing with Sean Burke, who I got traded for.
I know. Today I was like,
that's a big Vancouver connection.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, it was like,
and of course signing as a free agent with the Rangers my last 2 years.
Yeah. What's it like? I mean, actually, I had a question. Like,
Beezer was a Canuck for a cup of coffee too, because of the entry draft stuff.
It was the
expansion draft. Sorry, yeah.
Mike Fountain was on one of those teams too.
Mike, well, I had a lot.
And they just preceded Luongo.
And who else? There was Mason, Bob Mason, who's the goalie coach for Minnesota.
Oh yeah.
Troy Gamble. Came in, who was he was a number 1 draft pick to Vancouver.
Yeah. Where did Alex Auld come through?
Aldi came in. I never played with Aldi. We got him from Florida.
There you go.
He was from Florida. I think in one of maybe the Sean Burke trade. I don't know. Maybe it was the Sean Burke trade.
Well, I know Auld went to Florida.
He started there, didn't he?
I know he was traded there for Luongo.
Oh. I don't know. I can't.
He kind of.
I thought he started there.
Yeah, I think he was drafted. Yeah. And then he went back in the Luongo deal.
He played a long time ago. Aldi played in Ottawa too, and I don't even remember playing in Ottawa.
You're around.
It's funny you bring it up. Like, you guys must have been playing at that Greensboro Coliseum, which holds like 21,000 people. It's a huge place.
Yeah. It was odd.
It wasn't. It wasn't built for hockey, was it?
No.
So, like, I don't know if it was built
college
for
basketball or something.
Okay.
That's it's a Bible Belt, right? All through there. So in college basketball, obviously you've got Wake Forest, you have North Carolina, and you have what's the other one there? Wake Forest, North Carolina, and
Geeta. You're the sports expert.
Where's Duke?
Duke. That's where Duke is. Yeah. So huge, and then NASCAR.
Yeah.
Massive.
Were the Panthers there yet? The Carolina Panthers?
They weren't. I don't think they were.
But the Hornets were.
They were there. And then
they were the Hornets.
And then WWF.
Yeah,
that's what it was all about.
Well, that's how I knew about the Greensboro Coliseum.
I can't wait for that outdoor game in Carolina.
Tractor pull and all that kind of stuff
with the NASCAR around it.
You're like, no, don't go to the tractor pull. The Kings are in town. Come to the Hurricanes game. Like. But like, what was was there support there in the Carolinas?
Yeah, there was. The team was on a little bit of an upswing. They ended up winning the cup not too long after that. Maybe
2003.
06. They went to the finals.
Oh, they went to the finals. That's right.
Yeah, with Urbe. Yeah, your boy.
And Detroit. They played Detroit.
Yeah, they got swept, but I mean, they had a hell of a run.
Yeah, and then of course won it. Was it 06? They won.
Yeah. The Bizarro year.
Yeah. Yeah. So they, then they obviously places like that like winning teams, but now they can't even. I don't know if they put 5,000 people in the stands anymore.
No. Did you like playing down in Florida? We talked to
Florida?
Kyle, and he loved San Jose. He said of all the places he played.
Yeah, well, San Jose is just a great place to play.
That's true.
Like what an atmosphere! It's probably one of the best atmospheres in the league.
I've been there, row 2, next to the Canucks bench. I loved it.
They just have a good old time.
Yeah.
In Florida, it was okay. It was okay. We weren't that great. They obviously had the run, and then it was kind of a transition area there. I think that that time they relied a lot on the snowbirds.
Okay. Does that also have to do with being like removed from sort of a city like Miami? Because Sunrise, whatever, and Fort Lauderdale are a little bit
out,
yeah.
Probably
a different crowd out there.
Bigger arena. The Miami arena was not in the best place at time.
Okay.
so I don't know where everybody parked when they were down there because it's in a bad area.
You
were there. Trevor had the Nassau. Wasn't that in a rough part of town?
Yeah. Well, no, Nassau is just way out in the middle of nowhere.
Oh.
It's not really a rough part of town.
If I know my American NHL arenas in terms of bad neighborhoods, Chicago and the Joe.
Yes.
I work with a few guys that do like replay for Sportsnet, and they're saying like if you're at a Red Wings home game and if you don't have a ride or a cab and you're there for half an hour after the game, it's like
if there's a people mover and all that kind of stuff that can get you through everywhere. But if you're kind of stuck there without a cab, it's not the greatest place to be around.
Yeah. Okay.
Chicago.
Yeah.
The old stadium used to be right beside the. It was basically the parking lot now for the United Center. Really bad.
Yeah.
I think it's cleaned up a little bit now, which is great. But usually these, the older arenas, it's the land, right? Cheaper land. So that's where they built these stadiums. Yeah. So unfortunately, the neighborhoods are a little sketchy, but these rebuilds in all these cities, especially Detroit. They're now kind of cleaning up a little bit.
I was just going to say, those arenas are super old. It was probably a different city when they were built.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Pre-war.
Yeah. Well, the Joe, which is gone this year.
Yeah.
This will be the final year. The old Olympia was not too far around the corner, so that's where like Gordie Howe played out of and all that kind of stuff. So, probably back in the day then, it was happening. Motown, right? I mean, this is what was going on all down there. And then whatever recessions or whatever hits.
We all know about the societal changes in America in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. So, I mean, you can use New York as, Harlem was a great place to go to at one point. And, it's not the best place.
Where were you living when you were playing in New York?
I lived in Connecticut, Greenwich, Connecticut.
Really?
Because our practice facility was in Rye, New York, which is kind of right on the border.
Okay.
So the old playland is where we practiced out of. And it was great. I mean, it was it's all you needed, really. It's we had a nice locker room and everything, and it was a cold arena, which is always good to practice in. And it was close to home. I mean, you can only about 10 minutes up the highway.
Yeah.
That was if you remember, Wayne Gretzky always said every player should experience 1 year in New York, and he's right. I mean, it's incredible place.
Yeah.
Incredible place. I mean, there's so much to do, not just in the New York area, but the surrounding areas. It's just a great part of the world. The people are great. They can be a little bit harsh, but they love winners, and most of all, they love just a good try, so a good effort, and they'll applaud you for that. If you're putting in a good effort every night, that's what they want. But they can be a little harsh. You always say wives and mothers and kids you never bring up, but they would sometimes bring up some stuff, and you're like, come on, man,
Where else are fans harsh? Because we've been critical of Boston and Philly the last couple of weeks.
Well, Philly's another place that can get a little harsh, and Boston can be as well. But Whether it's just an intimidation factor, which it probably is. I mean, most people are great. You see them afterwards, and it's just all in.
We like to keep
fun.
batteries on hand in case a Flyers game breaks out.
Yeah, okay.
I was gonna say, did any Flyers fan hit you with a battery?
No, I always had success in Philly. I always had some of my best games. I don't know what it was. Maybe the sight lines of the old Spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
I got a chance to play in the newer arena, which it was almost identical to the Spectrum, the way they built it. But maybe it's because one of my boyhood heroes, Bernie Perrant, was there watching, so maybe I had something to show off.
What was go on?
Just before we get too far away from New York, and you talked about the fans and stuff, was it for you going back there after everything that happened in '94? You were almost the guy who I won't say single-handedly, but you were one of the key things that almost stole that cup out of that team.
It was kind of strange, walking into the locker room and seeing all the photos on the wall and everything. But the people were wonderful, and the organization. The players that were there, so Brian Leach, Richter, and Graves were there.
Yeah.
Mark was
Messier
still here.
Came back,
he came
didn't
back.
he? Yeah.
They were great. Like I said, the people were fantastic, and it was just a great place to play. There's so much going on there, not just sports-wise. I mean, at the end of the day, hockey. It's probably on the last page of the sports until everything else is done. Yankees are the number one there, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then you just kind of pick your way down there to whenever each season comes on. But as far as any other celebrities, entertainer, they're everywhere, and but they treat you like gold. You walk into restaurants or whatever establishments you're going into, and you're pretty much don't have to pull your wallet out. I mean, everything, they just comp everything.
Did Mark Messier take you to the China Club?
What is
Mark
that?
did, but I've been to the China Club back in the day.
Please tell listeners like myself, what is the China Club?
Well, it was an old bar.
It was like one of the biggest clubs in New York. And a
story. This is like going back to just after Studio 54, Limelight, Palladium. All that kind of
gotcha.
A story. Anyway, I asked because Kiprios told a story about Mess would be in there holding court and making road teams. They can wait in line for a little longer, and it's just like,
I understand.
I really liked Theo Fleury's book.
I haven't read it. I just know my name's mentioned in it once or twice.
Oh, I don't remember your name, but no, I'm sure it. I'm sure it is. But I'm just like, he's in a much better place now, and he's doing a lot of very good. But I'm just curious, like, what was playing with him in those were tougher years of his career, and I'm just
super tough.
Like, what was it like?
We had a kind of a dysfunctional team. Yeah. On paper, Stanley Cup champions. Mm-hmm. But maybe too many Chiefs.
Oh,
not enough Warriors, and for someone like that, not a good place to be.
Okay.
Just because of what's accessible there, and the people that are, eyeing out on whatever type of, whether it's professional athletes, celebrities, or whatever it may be, and
you can have a lot of fun there and spend a lot of money really quick.
Yeah, they were very fast, and he did. Yeah. And it's put him in a dark place, and maybe I don't want to say it tarnished his not his image, but his career a little bit, because he was a great hockey player and had a wonderful career, and it was made it tough on his family at the time, and and the big family, which was the New York Rangers. But there was a couple other guys that were in dark places then too, and it was really good guys, and you just you wanted to help them out and keep them on track, but you can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
And they're adults and men, and they gotta kind of take the bull by the horns themselves.
Yeah. I want to finish things up. I just want to ask, when you were playing in Vancouver, I find just locker room dynamics fascinating. So I'm just curious, who was running the Canucks dressing room when you were there? Trevor's got the C on his sweater?
Yeah, I mean, there was a few guys. There wasn't necessarily one. There was everybody, to be quite honest with you. That sounds kind of, cliche-ish, I guess. But obviously Trevor, was a big part of it. But I like to think I played a little bit into it. I wasn't a big, super vocal guy, especially if I was playing. I was pretty quiet for the most part.
Okay.
I like to goof around a little bit and loosen up a little bit. If I wasn't playing, maybe a little bit more goofy. But Dave Babbage, Jerky Lume, Dana Merzen, Sergio Momasso, Murray Craven, Jeff Cornell was he was the biggest prankster for sure. So he kept everybody loose. In the early years, he had Steamer there and had Harold Schneps I played with. So there was a lot. Paul Reinhardt when he came in. So we were blessed to have a lot of leaders that not necessarily had the A or the C on their sweater. That Pavel in his own right, he wasn't obviously a big talker in the room, but he would come out with the odd funny thing. We couldn't understand him, but then he would just go out and lead by example on the ice. So, it's just we were a really tight group, and everybody seems to draw themselves to the 94 team. We did it in 82, 94, and then obviously 2011. But for some reason, the 94 team has this big place in everybody's heart. I don't know if it's the age of everybody or what it is, but
it might be exactly that.
And it was a lot different with us in the community. Not saying that the guys aren't big in the community or do things in the community, but now with social media and all that kind of stuff, it's so tough for the guys to let their hair down and let loose a little bit.
I've said before, I'm like, I may not recognize the player out on the street, but I'll recognize their dog.
Yeah.
Who's that? Is that Troy Stetcher based on his dog?
Yeah.
But you bring up like the connection you had, and it just made me think of like when Pat passed away a couple of years ago, like all of those key players from that team were just like here in droves, and it must have been that impactful of a group.
Well, I mean, it was not just for us, but whoever he touched throughout his hockey career, from Philadelphia to Toronto to wherever he was, even Edmonton when he coached there. He played junior hockey in Edmonton as well. So he was just an incredible man, and for us in that 94 team, he was like a second father to a lot of us, and really a mentor, and taught us, from me anyways, from 87 to 98, how to be professional.
Yeah.
And how to approach the game, and how to be a person away from the game, and in the community, which a lot of us are still heavily involved with and love to do. It was just it was a big loss, and I got a chance with myself, Cliffy, and Jim Sanlak was back. We went to go, his Hall of Fame induction, so that was important for me to be there, and I really enjoyed that night. But he certainly missed. There's no doubt about it. He was the big Irishman. Was a good man.
On a more positive note, do you have a good prank story to tell about that Jeff Cornell pulled?
Or somebody on Jeff maybe to get him back?
No, nobody would ever do anything with Jeff because they knew that would be it for the rest of your career. Going after you. He would just do, cutting ties or sewing your pockets together. You just sew your pockets together.
He had time to sew your pockets together.
Yeah. He'd nail your shoes to the floor or to the wood wherever your shoes went. He'd nail you. I mean, anything. You couldn't close one eye without him doing something. Especially because we flew commercial back then too, so you didn't want to fall asleep on the plane because you'd have half a tie when you woke up, or you'd have shaving cream on your head or something like that. It was nonstop. But there's been other characters. I have one, Nick Fatou, if you remember him. He was a tough guy, played in New York for most of his career. He was a famous prankster too, but the one that some of the guys told me about in New York, some of the alumni guys, is he wasn't playing, he was hurt. So the guys would come to Playland and park in the back, and then they would bus to wherever they have to go from there. Mm-hmm. So he would go to great extent to actually have a jack, like a car jack up the car, put the cinder blocks underneath the car, but lower the car down so that the tires looked like they were touching the ground, but you couldn't see the cinder blocks. Then you get in your car and try to drive away, and you couldn't drive away.
Jesus, right.
You had time to do this.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
Those are really involved pranks.
They're really involved, exactly. But the other ones are like the baby powder in the blow dryer and all that kind of stuff.
Fantastic.
The goofy stuff like that.
Yeah, just anything.
We used to have tons of fun on the in the airports because again.
Yeah.
We'd turn a flight to Calgary into 5 days because something would go wrong. We called it the Canuck zone, right? Because an hour and 15-minute flight would turn into something. So we'd have guys with crazy glue a quarter and watch people try and pick it up. Or back then we had dollar bills, so the either fishnet or fish line or dental floss and pull it, and you would see them, goofy little stuff like that. Vaseline and payphones, which they had back then, and then somebody would get the Vaseline, just
and then
like
they look
really, really tired, stupid,
and they'd look
childish
up and
stuff.
there's the Canucks.
Yeah, the whole team laughing away and stuff, and they'd be all choked. And what are they going to do?
You guys just beat the Oilers. Wasn't that enough?
Yeah. But good times. I mean, it's something that they don't get to do that much because they're in and out of the cities.
Mm-hmm.
They've got their charter flights and away they go. So it's not very often they get a chance to get on the road and bond together.
Yeah.
They probably do it in other ways now, and they do it in other ways. But we had some good times.
Well, it seems like camaraderie was a lot
it's
more
huge.
back then.
And you talk to any of the older guys, and even the guys now. That's what everybody misses. Of course, they miss the game, they miss competing, but it's the camaraderie and hanging with the guys and whether it's going out for lunches or dinners or whatever it may have been. That's what it's all about, because you become a big family, right? Everybody's your brothers.
Yeah, and I think it was the Flames that were struggling this year, and They were taking the
Gully. They were taking them in the train.
Yeah, they're taking the train from Montreal to Ottawa, and he's just like, take your headphones out, talk to each other, work it out, and
have a beer.
Well, no, he took away the beer.
Oh yeah,
and he's like, he goes to the vets. He's like, is it a big deal that I took away the beer? We want that back? And they're like, yes. Oh, yeah. And so they had a couple beers. They talked it out. They worked on the problems. The anxiety, the stress went down, and then they went on that streak. So it's like it's key.
Yeah, no, it is. You don't have to go out and get hammered.
The
right?
change up,
which I've never heard of, by the way. I've never heard anything like that. But if it's just go out and have a couple of drinks and tell some stories and like you said, get whatever's on your chest, and get it out of there, and it goes a long way. It's hockey has had that beer culture labeled on them, but it's
there's more than just drinking beer.
Exactly.
It's just going out for beers is you talk it out and you learn more about people.
Yeah. Absolutely,
yeah.
Could I just check in with the change-up stuff? I heard rumors that he was hanging out with Jyrki Lumme and a couple of the guys. Do you know who might have given him that idea?
Well, what it was is I missed it because I was doing something else, but there was an alumni lunch with the main players.
Yeah.
So I think Jyrki may have been at one of the table, but then some of the main guys may have been. But I don't know. Maybe he just.
I heard it was an alumni prank almost that they told this guy, "This is what we do."
Oh, maybe.
And then he took it for real.
Cornell
well, no, it wasn't. But the change up, I've never heard of that.
What sounds like a term? It's like the way he described it. It sounds like something you do in the 80s. Like, you can't play hungover nowadays.
No, gosh, no. It's no chance you could do it. Maybe back in the days in the 70s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If things were going bad, the coach would probably walk in with a case of beer and put it in the locker room and say, "Okay, get at it, guys." That type of thing. There was, there's been times where there's been lunches that have turned into dinners, right?
Liquid lunches, that
Ryan
type
of stuff.
stuff.
Team meetings. Podcast
team
drunk.
meetings.
No, you don't do it. You can't do it.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But that's something you definitely don't want to get into is obviously having too much alcohol in your system the day of a game.
Needless to say, I think that's good advice for youngsters out there.
Yeah.
Kids out there, if you're listening.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't drink and podcast, or in Geeta's case, lay down.
Don't drink and play hockey, according to Kirk McLean.
Exactly.
Irish hurlers don't know the story.
On now that we've clarified the change up, and I think that's a good point to wrap it up. So Kirk, thanks a lot for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me. This is great.
Not that we didn't want to talk about it, but we hear a lot of this, you know, we just wanted to kind of ask more about your career and not just, hey, that save against Robert Reichel was awesome,
Right.
but you had a hell of an NHL career, so that's why we kind of want to touch on other things, but, you know, all come back full circle to the Canucks, so.
Well, thank you.
So
I appreciate that. You didn't even bring up the Robert. I think I brought it up. Did I bring it up, or you just brought it up now?
He just brought it up.
Okay.
We were
You
like,
mentioned saves against Calgary.
yeah.
But no, I'm pretty sure a lot of us have an immense respect for you. We watched all those games, but we wanted to cover some topics that maybe don't always get covered.
I love that, and hey, I mean it's a part of me in history, and it was a defining moment in my career without a doubt. And if people want to talk about it and they like to say, I remember where I was, it's a pretty good feeling. It's when they stop talking about it. It's when I have to be concerned.
You're like, remember?
Yeah, exactly.
We'll bring you back. We'll talk about that next time. But I immense respect for you. The first time we met, I waited while you were doing the broadcasting gig pay-per-view, and I got your rookie card autograph.
Okay.
Not that you would remember that, but no, we do have respect for everything you did for this
I
town.
appreciate
So thank
that.
you.
I respect what you guys do. This is stuff. I mean, it's what it is, and I grew up in Toronto, but this is my home. It's been my home since I basically got traded here in '87. So I've actually lived here longer than I have in Toronto, and consider myself a Vancouverite and a West Coaster, and wouldn't change it for the world. It's just a wonderful place. The people have been great to me from day one, and it's the least I can do is continue on and give back to the community and hang out with people like you.
Well, we had a lot of fun tonight, and we went over an hour. That's how good of the conversation was. So we'll do our quick plugs, and we'll wrap things up. If you want to follow us on Twitter, make sure you follow us at PucksNetCR, PucksOnNetCa. There you go. Again, as Kirk points to the puck. Pucks.net, were you a workload goalie, or did you thrive when there was 45 shots a night?
Yes, absolutely. I was definitely one of those goaltenders, and I think most goaltenders are like that. I think it gets you into the game, and I love to get a shot. Not a difficult shot, but a shot or a couple shots early in the game, get the feel of the puck and whatever kind of jitters you had. And I didn't, I wasn't one. I got jitters the night before thinking about visualizing and that, but the day of the game when you're in your element with the guys, it's just kind of went away from me. So, but yes, I enjoyed the workload for sure.
Always curious about that.
Kirk loves Pucks on Net. That's what I got from that.
There you go. That's right.
So if you want to make sure you subscribe on iTunes, rate and review on iTunes, leave a comment, 5 stars, that'd be great. Again, if you want to support the show monetarily for some bonus content, you can head over to patreon.com/pucksonnet. Marshall from Portland. We're big in Portland, Kirk.
I like it.
He pledged $5 a month, so
nice.
you can get extra stuff. So Marshall, Kirk, thanks you for that on our behalf. And
thank you, Marshall.
And if you want to support the show, just like us on Facebook, all that usual jazz, and just word of mouth, and that was about it.
Is this where we drop the mic?
You can. I don't know. Bam.
Well, we've got some money coming in. We can replace the mics.
Kirk just did a mic drop, so we got into there. Good night, everybody.